But first, let's talk about this latest accusation that Donald Trump has slammed against China. Has President Donald Trump begun laying the groundwork to challenge or derail the November midterm election? That question is once again at the center of American politics, and it comes after Donald Trump gave a primetime address from the White House, where Trump was referring to the 2020 presidential election, which, remember, he had lost to Joe Biden. Since then, Trump has repeatedly and falsely claimed that the election was stolen from him, despite there being no evidence of widespread voter fraud. Now, during the speech, he accused China of interfering in the U.S. election process. Trump claimed that voter data from 18 states had been bought, stolen, or hacked by China. He also alleged that people who uncovered the breach failed to alert the government or the Congress.
Unfortunately, the system we have today falls catastrophically short of that standard. Tonight, I'm announcing the immediate declassification and release of critical intelligence revealing shocking vulnerabilities in our election infrastructure. This evidence shows that the election system we have dangerously exposes like levels never thought possible to hacking, exploitation, and foreign interference.
Now, in his remarks, Trump went on to accuse Beijing of the illicit acquisition of 220 million voter files containing personal information. He's also accused members of the U.S. intelligence community of deliberately keeping the full extent of China's alleged activities under wraps.
The strategy included efforts to use Chinese contacts with big U.S. companies to influence U.S. business leaders to turn against the President of the United States of America. The Chinese government wanted U.S. President to lose the next election.
Now, in response to his speech, Beijing has pushed back almost immediately. China's foreign ministry dismissed the allegations as entirely fabricated.
The relevant claims made by the U.S. side are pure fabrications and malicious smears that have long since been proven to be groundless statements.
During the speech, Trump also returned to a domestic touchstone, the roll call of who can and should vote. He told viewers that his team had found more than 275,000 registrations tied to non-citizens in just 4 states. However, he did not clarify how many of those registrations led to the ballots being cast. Building on those very claims, Donald Trump again urged Republican lawmakers to advance the Save America Act. The proposed legislation, remember, would require voters to present their photo identification, provide proof of American citizenship when registering, and place tighter restrictions on mail-in voting. Now, the bill has passed the Republican-led House several times. However, its future in the Senate remains uncertain at the moment. It would need at least 60 votes to overcome a filibuster, which is a threshold that it is unlikely to reach given the current political divide. But as the popularity rating of Donald Trump continues to decline, inside Republican circles, some leaders quietly urge the president to address bread and butter issues that matter to more voters rather than revisit the events of 2020. The speech has also drawn attention from conservative voices and political commentators. Tucker Carlson, a longtime Trump supporter during the 2024 campaign, warned that growing frustration with political leaders could lead to a wider public backlash. In fact, he argued that many Americans feel ignored by those in power. He said this anger is not limited to one political party and reflects a deeper frustration shaping the current political climate. Let me welcome my guest on the show tonight. Greg Swenson joins us. He's a political strategist and China analyst joining us at the moment. Greg, good evening. Welcome to WION. I want to start by asking you, when John Ratcliffe, who's now the CIA director, and the 2021 report by the National Intelligence Council, or the NIC, has already stated that there has been no interference by Beijing in the 2020 elections, what makes the US president say this now?
Well, my guess is the president has access to documents that those people did not have access to at the time. And remember, part of the argument is that the intelligence agencies were trying to hide that evidence. And so, of course, we didn't know about it in 2021. And it doesn't surprise me that things are coming out now that reflect not only the interference, but more importantly, the cover-up by the state actors in terms of the FBI and the CIA.
All right. Greg, as you say that, a lot of critics of Donald Trump say that, look, this has to do with the midterm elections that are coming up. The fact that Republicans fear they will be losing this. This is also to do with the Save America Act that Donald Trump wants to get passed, which requires people to show their photo voter ID. All of these concerns by critics have been coming in, that this is not really just about China. It's about a lot of domestic considerations, whether it's the midterm election, the Save America Act, or just a distractionary tactic from the Iran war narrative that Donald Trump is now saying all of these things against China.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot in that question, but I think that, look, the president, you're right, it is about the midterms. I think the president wants to ensure that voters have confidence that their votes will actually count and that they're not being diluted by excess mail-in ballots or so-called ballot harvesting. So yeah, this is very much about the midterms, and I think that the timing has nothing to do with Iran. He can't really wait much longer because it's 3.5 months away until the midterms. So I think it's important to try to reinforce some confidence in the elections. And remember, there's some important context here, and this is why I'm waiting to see the documentation. And it wouldn't surprise me if there was a massive cover-up, because remember, the CIA and the FBI were involved in both the Russia collusion hoax in 2015 and 16, or 16 and 17, which was initiated by the Hillary Clinton campaign and then supported by the Obama White House in an effort to really ruin President Trump's first term. And then secondly, you had the Hunter Biden laptop scam in 2020, which was election interference. The FBI and CIA both said this was Russian disinformation, and then we found out months later after the election that in fact it was true. And what's really notable is the FBI had the laptop for a year before the election. They knew it, and they basically covered it up. So that's some context that's important. So people are very distrustful right now because of what happened in both 16 and 20.
Greg, what would you say then to those Republicans within the party who are saying that, look, 2020 is a thing of past. You have to move on. Yeah. Donald Trump has to move on from that event. A lot has been said. A lot has been done in that context. Now you have to focus on bread and butter issues. The people are suffering from cost of living crisis. They have a lot at stake as far as, the markets are concerned, the economy is concerned. Why isn't the president talking about that?
Well, there's merit to that argument for sure. I mean, I think focusing on the pocket, basically the pocketbook issues, the bread and butter issues, the kitchen table issues. Yeah, that's something that's important. However, I think he's using this more recent revelation about 2020 to emphasize the need for the Save America Act, as you pointed out. So that's definitely part of the formula here. He wants that act passed so, again, Americans can have more confidence. The idea of voter ID is polling at 80%. And so this is another so-called 80-20 issue where it's disappointing to see that the politicians are blocking some legislation that 80% of the country supports. It's really ludicrous at this point.
All right. I'm going to leave it there. Greg, thanks very much for joining us. Let's wait and see what happens next. And of course, in the midterm elections, thanks very much at the moment.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.